Hello there, YouTuber, Show Captain 1050, 1041, 108. Welcome to the third theory video of the police roleplay lecture series. In this Theory 103 module, we will be looking at police powers. So basically, you're arresting, handcuffing, escorting, searching, stuff like that. There will be a lot of very important and interesting information here. That's why the video is probably going to be a bit longer, but it's definitely going to be worth checking out. So with that in mind, I hope you're going to enjoy. Let's get straight into it. First of all, escorting. Very important thing before you start escorting is please say something, okay? Don't just randomly start escorting people. It kind of makes them irritated and sometimes looks very weird. So just say something. Sir, I'm going to be escorting you or stuff like that. Don't escort from miles away. If they are running, don't be one of those people that just run towards them and just escort them as they are running. Looks really weird. Just making sure you run towards them, you tackle them by just Shift W plus E. So basically run forward and spam E. Or by tasing them. So make sure they're on the ground and then start escorting them. Otherwise, it will look really, really weird. Now, another important thing about escorting is putting people into vehicles. Now, the biggest mistake people do is not opening doors. So many times, and on such serious roleplay servers, you see people just chugging them in through the window. Please don't do that. It looks really, really weird. And if you really want to upgrade your roleplay, opening the doors is a great way to do that, and it's really, really simple as well. Before you put them in the car, also make sure you just warn the suspect to mind their head, something like that. Just good role play, and of course make sure you fasten their seatbelt. Another common mistake people do. Once people are in your car and in your custody, they are your responsibility. Yeah, so make sure that they are safe. Meaning fasten their seatbelt, or if there's an active situation, make sure you get away with the vehicle if the suspect is inside. Because again, if he gets harmed and you put him in there, that's on you. Next thing we should be looking about is searching. Obviously a very important part of our police work. Now you can usually search for a person's ID, weapons, some sort of items, or some sort of dirty money. In general, you can have 3 reasons for searching someone. So the first one is consent, the next one is probable cause, and the last one is arrest. So let's look at the consent kind of thing first, right? Basically, if people allow you to search them, you can search them. Now that doesn't mean you're gonna randomly go to people and ask them for consent to search. That's really weird. But if you have like some sort of reasonable suspicion and you think they might be doing something illegal and you want to search them, you can ask them for consent. But if they say no, if it's just a suspicion, you unfortunately can't act on it. Probable cause, we already talked about it in the previous video, right? So you've seen someone do something illegal, or you have multiple independent witnesses. And lastly, arrest. So if you're gonna jail them later on, you also need to search them for your own safety. Now, there's literally a few very easy steps you need to follow when searching, right? So 4 steps. First of all, always ask for consent. Now, a lot of people just say, I'm going to be searching you. And that's something you can do. So particularly if you're like arresting someone, you can just say, I will search you. You have the legal right to do that. But I just think it's way better if you ask for consent to search, okay? So why is that the case? Simply because the person really does calm down a lot more. Like, you can't imagine how big of an impact it has. If you just ask them and they give consent, they feel like they're in control of the situation and they feel like you're showing them some respect. And for a lot of people, if you're going to show them respect, they will show respect back. It's really a pro tip. So many times officers had uncompliant people. I came in, always asked them for consent. They started being compliant. Really easy step, right? Now, if they give you consent to search, then you did a great job. And usually like 8 out of 10 people will give you consent. People don't give you consent to a search, then you just need to follow the 3 steps for difficult people in the handcuffing section of this video. So just hang in tight for that. But for now, let's just assume that they say yes. Second step is you should always ask them if there's anything on them, right? So, sir, is there anything on you that could poke me, stab me, hurt me, sir? Anything illegal I should be aware of? Or something along these lines. Basically, just good role play, and it's there for your safety. Next step, put your gloves on if you've got any. It's good roleplay. Just Slash Me puts gloves on. Really good stuff. Lastly, it's always kind of nice roleplay if you also ask the people about the location of their ID. So which pocket is your ID in, sir? Or is it in your wallet? Where's your wallet, sir? Now we got some problems with searching, right? And those are the special cases of CDS and GR. So controlled dangerous substances, drug reports, and gunshot reports. The problem is that it's really hard to establish some sort of probable cause when there's some sort of gunshots or drug reports. Mainly because you don't see them do that, right? You're usually relying on some sort of local report system or some sort of whatever feature of the server that will notify you about someone selling drugs, right? So that's a big problem, right? And also you can't question the people. So for instance, if a local reports the crime of selling drugs, you can't like go to them and say, oh, is this the guy who sold it? Can you give me a description? Usually it doesn't work. I'm just going to put out a general rule here. I don't know if it applies to your server. You need to make sure to check with your FTOs. But I would say any suspicious activity within a 2-block radius of a report should constitute probable cause. You pull the guy over, right? Do the traffic stop, all that stuff, and at the end, you kind of ask them about possible involvement in sort of drug activity if they've noticed anything. And for gunshot reports, I would say you should do a gunshot residue test first before you search. I'd not recommend you straight up search. Probably gunshot report first and then search, yeah? If they come back positive. Now, a really important thing here is, if you can see, I wrote suspicious in bold letters, right? So suspicious activity. Now, what you shouldn't be doing is just go ID hunting, right? Because some servers have IDs over players. And then someone sees an ID in the area and then they just go straight for them and start questioning them. That's absolute fail roleplay, okay? Why? Because first of all, in real life, we don't have IDs over our heads. And second of all, you cannot distinguish between locals and civilians. At least you shouldn't be able to, right? So why did you single out that one guy, right? And not like the other 100 locals that were around him, right? That's the thing, or NPCs if you want to call them, right? You can't just single them out, right? That's not fair towards them, and that's meta, and that's power gaming. So don't do that at all, right? But any suspicious activity, meaning that the smallest thing they do, you can pull them over for, right? Jaywalking, speeding, no lights, I don't know. Just insert your petty crime here, right? You can pull them, right? But don't pull them for no reason. Remember the 5 identifiers: ID, plate, face, voice, clothes. Because if the person gets away from you, you need to be able to re-identify the person, right? If you don't have 2 identifiers, you can't identify him, you can't charge him. Good. Next thing, barriers to searching. Now, sometimes there are some barriers. So, first example would be no ID. So sometimes people want to role play it out that they don't have an ID or have a fake ID. And that's up to you. But in general, there's a rule that they need to be able to identify themselves, right? If they can't identify themselves, then they will have to go into police custody until there is a way to identify them. So a good way to start off, kind of persuading the person to, give you their ID if they have it, is by warning them for remand. So you could say something like, sir, I understand I didn't have your ID, but can you just make sure to check all the pockets and all the compartments inside your vehicle? Because if you cannot find your ID, I'll have to bring you with me to Mission OPD, and then you're gonna have to be remanded into custody until we're able to identify you. If they don't have an ID, then you should probably bring them to PD and take out fingerprints, right? So what do I mean with that? Once you get the OC ID, so out of character ID, you then want to check them for criminal records, and if they were arrested before, then you could kind of roleplay that, yeah, they were fingerprinted, so you could identify them based on the fingerprints. But if they weren't arrested, then they just have to be remanded, and then it's something that, your legal system will have to sort out. That's not your problem, yeah? Just make sure you're friendly about it with people. Second barrier to searching is opposite gender not giving consent despite probable cause. Example, you're a male, there's a female, you can't just search her, right? That's why I always ask for consent, right? A lot of officers think I can't search them. A lot of officers just straight up search them. It's not okay. What do you need to do? Would you give consent to would you consent to a search, ma'am? Or something like that. And then depending on her answer, if she says yes, you have no problems. You can search them, no worries, right? If she says no, then it becomes a bit more difficult. So what you should do first of all is ask for a female officer. So go on the radio, say any female officers available, need an additional over here, right? And then wait for a bit. If there's no female officer available, try to check their ID, because the IDs usually have the gender of the person on them. And then if they still, there's no female officer and they still don't want to consent to a search, you should probably bring them to Mission OPD and then just give them again another choice. You're a busy person, but I would really appreciate it if you would give me consent to a search, man. We'd do it in front of a dash cam, and then we can just go along with the process. Alternatively, if you do not want to give me consent, I will have to unfortunately remand you into custody until a female officer is available. Say it in a friendly way, and usually at that point people will kind of realize that it's probably worth it to just consent to a search, get over with. But if they still don't give consent and want to go for the nines, that is fine. What you need to do though is out of character search them and take screenshots of the items they have, right? So this is just to prevent them from dumping the evidence inside the prison, right? Because that's just not realistic. Next thing, searching vehicles. It's really, really important that you search vehicles, yeah? So usually the role is, before you call a mechanic to remove the vehicle, you should be making sure that the vehicle is safe to be moved. Other very important example is after chases. After a chase, you should always search the car, right, for illegal items. Why? Because if people are fleeing, they're usually fleeing for a reason, right? So that means they either have some stuff that's illegal on them or in their car. So you need to make sure the vehicle is secure. Good. Next thing, confiscate. That's fairly easy. So just make sure you role play it out, right? I mean, get an evidence back. /me takes evidence back. /me stores evidence back. You can also like use emote. An emote for like a bag, emote for a box. Take that emote, use the box, store the evidence in the box, put it back in your trunk, just give some good role play. It really, really helps out a lot, right? Also, when confiscating drugs and stuff like that, when you find them, feel free to do a little drug test, for better RP. Alright, so testing. In general, we have 3 types of tests. First one is GSR, gunshot residue. Second one is alcohol. And third one is a drug test. So, first thing as well, what I always say, in order to be de-escalatory, in order to show respect to the people, in order to generate voluntary compliance, ask for consent. Sir, is it okay for me? Oh, sorry. Sir, would you consent to a gunshot residue test? Would you consent to a breathalyzer test? Would you consent to it? Always make sure you ask for consent. It's very good. It's a friendly thing. Creates good role play. Make sure you do it. Really, so few people do it, and it's so bad that you don't. Okay? So let's look at the first one, which is gunshot residue test. So basically tells you if someone has discharged their weapon in the last X amount of minutes, depends on your server. Obviously, make sure you have probable cause, meaning that we had the general rule of like 2 blocks within a gunshot report. And then obviously taking out the test kit from your car, take the swabs, use them on the hands, clothes, put the sample in the machine, and then get a result. Yeah. A really important tip here is, if shots are fired, make sure you gunshot residue as soon as possible. All right, just so that you get a positive result. Reason is that there are multiple people involved in a situation, right? A lot of times you're gonna say I didn't shoot, right? And then if you didn't GSR test them, you don't know if they actually shot or not, right? So make sure you definitely get as much evidence as possible to guarantee a conviction. Next thing, alcohol test. Now for great roleplay, what you can do like a field sobriety test. Now there's just a lot of those on YouTube, so you can just Google that. But in general, it consists out of a horizontal gaze test and a walking down the line kind of thing, which we're all familiar with. And then if they fail the sobriety test, or you think that they're clearly intoxicated, then you can do the breathalyzer test. So just make sure you take out the kit from the trunk. Encourage the suspect to blow in the tube at a steady pace until you say stop. Something like that. Just create some sort of roleplay with them, and you'll do a great job. And lastly, drug tests. Now, usually they're not in the city. Usually it works like you search someone and then you immediately find out what drug it is. So that's kind of cool. But if you really want to go for the roleplay, right, you can just basically do a drug test kit as well, right? So as I said, it's often overlooked as a mechanic, but doesn't mean you shouldn't be using it, right? So just go to the back of your trunk, take some evidence bags, put a small sample of the substance into the baggie, introduce the reagent or the test kit, and then just talk about the result, right? So you can either verbally say what you're doing, or you can just /me it. Next thing, reviving. So obviously it's the job of the EMS to revive, but sometimes, unfortunately, EMS is not on duty, and it's up to us police officers to do it. In that case, make sure that you just spend a bit of role play, okay? So 3 to 5 minutes, introduce yourself first, ask what happened, search them for injuries, administer painkillers, clean their wounds, check for broken bones and stuff like that before you move people, because otherwise you make the fractures even worse. And only then, after that, you should revive, right? Don't be the guy who just instantly revives. That's not roleplay, okay? And last point, don't combat revive. Now, that does not mean that you shouldn't give any medical, right? Of course, you can go and roleplay, bandaging them up, stopping the bleeding, stuff like that. That's good. It's encouraged. You can also move them away from the scene to a hospital, but you shouldn't be reviving them. Good. Next thing, mechanic. So obviously a lot of times we need to repair, impound, unlock whatever, that a lot of times police officers have those powers. They're special powers. So just remember to use like a /me kind of, command. /me calls for a mechanic or something before you use it. Because otherwise it just looks really, really weird if you just make the car disappear out of nowhere, or if you just repair it out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's a bit weird. So, make sure you do that. And you can also just roleplay calling out the mechanic on your, radio or on your phone. That also works fine. 106 to dispatch, getting a mechanic over here for 4 tours on Elgin Avenue. Thank you. Let's have a look at handcuffing. A lot of people make big mistakes here, okay? First thing you should always remember is that handcuffing is an infringement of your liberties. Okay, so what it means is you can't, move as freely. It also looks a bit embarrassing. So most of the times, if you handcuff people, you should kind of be counting on the fact that they're going to be less compliant with you. So just keep that in mind, right? And also another thing you should keep in mind is remember your police discretion, right? Now, obviously, you have the right to handcuff them if one of the below 5 conditions are met, but it doesn't mean you necessarily have to, right? So it just depends. If you think like the person is going to be more compliant if you don't, obviously you're running a risk, you should be careful, but it could pay out in the long run. And there were some big cases that we've made thanks to, us listening to the suspect and not handcuffing them and giving them like a chance. So let's look at the 5 conditions of handcuffing. You should probably learn all of these, or at least like get a general understanding of them. First one, the suspect has harmed or threatened to harm someone. Second one, arresting. Third one, evidence is not under your control. Fourth one, fleeing. And fifth one, all verbal means have been exhausted. Now these are all based off of Thompson's lecture series, so if you want to check that out, check the description below. At this point, I'd just like to draw your attention to the fact that detaining is not one of the conditions. Okay, so if you detain someone, doesn't mean you should handcuff them just because you're detaining them, right? If you think about it, traffic stop is also detaining, and you don't handcuff people during a traffic stop, right? Because they were speeding. So keep that in mind, all right? Now just remember, at least one of the 5 conditions needs to hold. So let's look at the first few ones, which are very simple. So first one, the suspect has harmed or threatened to harm someone. Very clearly, handcuff them for your own safety and the safety of people around them, all right? I always recommend you tell them that you're handcuffing them and you tell them the reason why you're handcuffing them. Because if you're already going to handcuff them, that makes them feel uncomfortable, uncompliant, then at least the smallest thing you can do is try to explain to them why they're being handcuffed. Because a lot of times if you explain it to them, they will be more cooperative. And it's a reason that we often use to handcuff. Next one, arresting. Obviously, we said if you're sending someone to jail, it's just protocol to handcuff them. Just, again, for your own safety, right? Third one, evidence not under your control. Now, your job as a police officer is to investigate, right? And for that to happen, you mustn't allow people to tamper with evidence, right? Such as dropping items, destroying items, passing items on to other people. Even using their phone could be an example of tampering evidence, right? Because you don't know, they could be deleting text messages, which could be incriminating, right? So with the phone, what I usually do, I warn them, and if they do it again, I handcuff them. But if I see them drop or destroy something, instantly handcuff, right? No questions asked, right? Because you need to preserve as much of the evidence as possible, okay? That's why you need to handcuff them. Next one, fleeing. Now, first of all, if people flee, they're probably going to flee again. So that's one reason. And the second one, if people are fleeing, they're usually fleeing for a reason. And then lastly, and the most difficult and possibly one of the most important ones, is all verbal means have been exhausted. Now this is something that, again, a lot of officers don't do. And it's such a shame because it's good role play and it's good understanding of police operating procedures. In general, it just means that people are not compliant. So you ask them for consent, they don't want to comply. You ask them to leave an area, they don't want to comply, right? That kind of thing we're talking, right? The 3 steps of difficult people are aimed at what happens if people don't comply. So if they say no. Let's say you wanted to search someone. Ma'am, can I search you, please? Would that be okay? Would you give me consent to do that? And she says no. What are you going to do? All right, so let's look at 2 situations. So example number 1, you're pulling someone in the area of a CDS complaint. You go for the traffic stop steps, and then you start asking them if they've seen something suspicious happening around them. And then regardless what they say, you just want to be saying something like, all right, sir, I appreciate that. But would it be okay if I would have a quick search on you, sir? Would you give me consent to do that? Thank you very much. Or situation number 2, person is, let's say, on an active scene, happens a lot of times, doesn't want to leave, right? So you just want to say, sir, could you please leave the area for me? Appreciate that. Okay? That's a very good thing you can do. So that's a good example of ask for cooperation. If they say no, what do you want to do? First thing, really importantly, again, a lot of people don't do that, is find some justification through law. Okay, now why is this step so important? Because now it's not just you wanting them to leave the area. It's not just you wanting to search them. It's actually the law that requires you to do that. Once you say that the law requires them to comply, about 8 out of 10 people or 9 out of 10 people will start complying. You are creating compliance, right? So no need to handcuff, no need to pull out weapons. I'm just using my words, right? And the phrase you want to use in particular here is something like, the state of San Andreas gives me the right to. That's how you should start. It's a really good start, right? So Alright, so you don't want to consent to a search? Alright, I appreciate that. But the state of San Andreas gives me the right to search you if you're within a 2-block radius of a CDS complaint. So, sir, would it be okay if I search you, sir? Something like that. It's a great example. Or if they don't want to leave the area, the state of San Andreas gives me the right to give you a lawful order which you have to follow. So could you please leave the area for me, please? Appreciate that. Something like that. Really, really good phrase. Now again, if they don't want to do that and they say no again, which will happen, very few cases though, then you want to use something I call the magical phrase. Is there anything I can do or say that will make you comply? Is a great phrase. Why is it so great? So if they say no to that, they literally told you that there's nothing you can do, I'm not complying. Alright, then I've done everything I could to persuade you. So you're going to be arrested for obstruction of justice if you don't want to leave. Or if you don't give consent to a search, at that point then you would be like, alright, so we're now going to have to search you regardless if you give me consent or not. And the next thing is verbal deflectors. Again, something that Thompson touches upon. And the verbal deflectors are basically his phrase of saying, what do you do when people hold insults at you? He just recommends a simple phrase. There's a couple of phrases, but the one I think is the best is something like, I see, I understand where you're coming from, sir. Appreciate that, but, right? It's kind of a good phrase that he uses, and it's really nice. So, as I said, I really recommend you watch Thompson's video for more details on that, because he was a real-life cop, and he does go through a lot of his experiences. It's really fun to watch as well. He's a really entertaining guy. So, all right, now we're going to go into 6 steps of arresting. Now, some of you may know them as 5 steps of arresting, but I've decided to make them 6 because a lot of people didn't do any gunshot residue testing or breathalyzer testing. So that's why we're making it 6. First of all, in order to arrest, remember, we need probable cause, right? If you don't know what that is, watch the second video, all right? Basically means you need to see something illegal or have multiple independent witnesses giving a statement about something illegal happening. So the 6th one in order. First one, handcuffing, right? Really important. You want to handcuff them. You want to secure the evidence. You want to secure the suspect. Your safety, their safety, all that jazz, yeah? While you handcuff. Second of all, Miranda rights. We're going to be explaining the second slide. So in the next slide. Don't worry about it too much. It's just a phrase you need to learn. It's really easy to do though, so don't be too scared of it. And the third step is far more interesting. ID. Why is that so important, right? You need to get the ID as soon as. Why? Simple, right? First of all, people disconnect, right? People crash. That's a thing, right? Second of all, people disconnect intentionally. That's also possible. And third of all, people escape or they get broken out of your custody, right? And if you have the ID, if you secure the ID and like note down the name, which is something I always recommend, you could just go with it. You just don't care because you got their name anyway. So you can identify, write up a warrant, right? So don't have to go anything crazy. But really do make sure you /me, notes, name, surname, or do it on the radio so that you can actually use the data, okay, against them. Really good tip. 4th one is the test, and that's kind of the new step I've added. Because I've seen a lot of people didn't gunshot residue after situations, didn't breathalyze if it was needed. So just make sure if you need to test them, if you think they've shot or something like that, if you got like actual reason to believe that, try to test them. Obviously ask them for consent, as we said. Test them, role play it out, and then see where it leads you. Okay, really important to secure as much evidence as possible. Otherwise, people might get away with murder, because that's what happened before as well, right? So make sure you have as much evidence as possible. 5th step, really important. You need to search the suspect. Again, we said, you know how we search, steps, all that. Make sure you follow that, ask for consent, all that good stuff. Really important. You also need to remove these items because I don't want them to use that against me in the car, right? Now, obviously, a lot of times in the car they can't use it against you in the game. But still, in real life, if they had a weapon, they could still pull it out, right? So if you want to go proper roleplay, you want to secure the evidence first, right, and then put them in the car. And obviously, as you said, when we put people in the vehicle, you warn them, open the door, please, open the door, and put on their belt. Really, really important. All right, now what happens if they need medical, right? Is there much point in reading their rights if they're unconscious? Absolutely not, right? So what you want to do, you probably want to give medical first, right? So obviously you feel like they're dangerous and stuff, you may want to handcuff them, but be careful if they have broken arms, right? Because that could make things worse. So we need to know how to role play that out. But in general, try to give role play, ask for EMS if it's available. If not, you're gonna have to wing it. 3 to 5 minutes of role play, get them to hospital, and then once it's safe, you continue with the steps. All right, just make sure we need to preserve life first. Everything else is second. All right, Miranda rights. Every server has this differently. And actually, to be fair, there is no like universal Miranda right out there. But I'd recommend talk to your FTOs and they're going to tell you what they kind of like and then use that, you know. But in general, it goes something along the lines of you have the right to remain silent. Anything you do can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you by the state if available. To extend the rights I have just read to you. Now, note here that in bold we have if available. Why is that in bold? Because unfortunately, a lot of roleplay servers do not have a 24/7, a legal representative or lawyer or whatever available. Processing, now obviously, take your time. A lot of times people just rush through processing and switch like a 1 minute process. Don't do that, please, yeah? Make sure you take the person's fingerprints, check them for warrants, take their mug shots, It's a great way to like fill time, right? So what I do, I take someone's fingerprints, I say /me takes fingerprints, and while I do that, I'm checking them for warrants, right? So that way I'm creating some roleplay for them, but I'm actually AFK, I'm actually like checking the system, the MDT, right? So that's a great way to kind of roleplay out while you're AFK. Taking mugshots, really good stuff as well. Take the personal items, make sure that the masks off, helmets off, glasses off, whatnot. Make them sign for those items. Call for prisoner transport. The way you usually do that is, badge number, I don't know, let's say 106, requesting a 1091 for a 1095, right? 1091 prison transport, 1095 suspect in custody. Obviously, feel free to do actual prison transport. It's a good roleplay as well. And lastly, remember police discretion. It is a game, right? So don't throw the book at people. Like, obviously, if they really deserve it, maybe, don't punish them for creating roleplay to you. That's what I'm trying to get at. Right? And lastly, dealing with lawyers. Now, if you have a lawyer, just please make sure you don't panic. A lot of people lose their shit. Just don't do it, yeah? So take your time. You don't have to answer all the questions immediately, right? Think about what you're going to say. Maybe make a list of the charges, and then just read the charges out, right? And that's about it. So thank you very much for watching. Here's the recap slide. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any further questions, comments, feel free to, write them down in the comment section. Feel free to subscribe for more videos like this. We still have the entire theory and the force section to go through. With that in mind, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Show Captain 1050, 1042, 107. Stay safe.